if you focus on the process of making whatever it is you want to make and making sure that that process and the people that you work with is respectful, joyful, and more important than the end result, I promise you it will come back in spades.
The one thing I learned. Lessons for life.
Welcome to The One Thing I Learned, and this week I'm talking with Becca Dobyns, all the way in Los Angeles, where she is a producer, creative director, and a director in her own right. Becca made a film about Stamp Productions, my company, and it's not often you come across a team in your space where you feel like, you know, you're hopefully aiming to be one of the best, and then you realise by meeting someone else who is far superior that actually you just realise just how far you've got to come and how far you've got to learn. The way she operates on set is unbelievable. Her team is incredible. And it was just a joy to watch them work and realise that you're at the top of Mount Stupid and you then have to go back to school and learn a whole lot more just to try and get anywhere near their level. So this is Becca. She's wonderful and I can't wait to hear her story.
If I could pick one lesson to pass on to a younger me or the next generation, I would really emphasize how creative work and production is a team effort, and it's never about the project you're working on right now. It's about the next project and the next project and the next project. When I first got started, I think your ego plays a big part in thinking that the end result is so important that you emphasize the product. And I think focusing on the process and the relationship and the people that you hopefully want to work with for a lifetime is this single greatest lesson that I've learned, which is never burn out any relationship or crew or creative partner for the sake of one product. It should be about someone you want to work with over and over and over again. And that's how you treat people. It's how you feed people, inspire people, and really focus on process. So my biggest lesson is really teamwork. It's a team sport. It's about finding members of your team and your creative community to make not just your work, but their work or their good idea and really build a community for a lifetime. And so you're never going to be in control of the final product, but you can always be in control of the process and the people that want to work with you for however long you get to have a career.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's really interesting. I was listening to, I think it was Rick Rubin the other day, and he says a lot of people get stuck, a lot of people, and we've all been there. I do it frequently, but you get a bit stuck in the creative process because you want it to be perfect, or you think that one piece of work will define you, but that whole point of it being a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Rather than you make it, you release it, and then you move on and you take the lessons from it. And those lessons inevitably come from the people you work with, right?
Yeah, I think you always get better every mistake you learn and every project you make. So what a shame to focus too much on the product for your less evolved, less mistake self. So I love to think about process in terms of I'll be so much better on the next one, and I'd be so lucky to work with these same people again, and use that as a guiding principle for just how I approach the work and treat people, and moving away from that perfectionism. I always call it like one precious point. So at any time in a creative project, I say like you get one moment to be precious and decide what the core of that thing is that you really want to protect and guard, and everything else can change. So that way you remain flexible with a clear vision of what the thing is and never let progress be that enemy of perfection. But I'll use that language all the time. Like, this is my one precious point. We're not changing this thing, but everything else is fair game. And I think that's a really respectful way to work with creatives at any part of the process so that you can retain your vision but be wildly flexible to the best idea.
Yeah, I mean, I witnessed that with you guys, and the work you do. So I obviously saw the films that you'd made first before I met you, and then, I think I stalked you guys and bullied you into making something about us, and you made us look unbelievably good. And I think, but just watching the way you guys worked, it was the first time in a long time I felt like a novice again, a little bit, in a good way. Not like, I think, the team at my company, Stamp, I feel like we've got a good team and we're evolving. But I suddenly saw a team, I was like it felt like we were not in the Premier League yet. And then there was this team of professionals. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. Like the way you operate as producer, I really saw that teamwork throughout every stage of the process, and how you all are as a team is really impressive. I think it was really nice to see, especially in an industry which has less than ideal reputation, I guess, in terms of that aspect of it. I think historically, don't you think?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think I personally have always tried to implement on my sets, or the way that I work as a producer, that the way we do things is actually more important than the product or whatever end result of that set is. And that means not cutting corners or not doing something that is easier when you can do something that takes more time and effort. And I think that ethos helps guide a set that is focused on like respect and trust, and taking a little bit more time maybe to invest in a technology that's challenging or new. I think it's very, very easy, because this is a high stress environment with a lot of money and creatives on the line, that the first thing to go is always process. Like, screw it, we'll go do this another way. And for me, I like to think about just how can I have a long-term career and a community and a tribe of people that I want to work with over and over and over again, even if something we make doesn't move the needle or change our careers, because it's about like finding joy in that process and having a good time, because we're just not in control. I have such a we're wildly out of control of whether or not our work is received, perceived, or celebrated. So to focus on making that work joyful, it feels like the only thing worth doing for me as a producer.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. Again, I'm always telling my girls, control what you can control. I love that old Stoic philosophy and the ancient philosophies, and it's quite liberating in a way. You go, well, if we do this and follow the process, then whether or not that goes viral or does exactly what it needs to, you can't necessarily control that. Is there a job that you're really proud of that was just so full, that could have really gone astray if you hadn't just sort of, followed that guidance?
Yeah, it might not. It's not the biggest job or the most impressive job, but the first time that I felt I created an environment of high trust, respect, and creative flow was my first feature in grad school. I was directing, and we had an all-female above-the-line crew, and it was a set of no money. We shot for like 15 continuous days, and it was such a organic organism that I had many people coming up to me saying, like, I didn't know sets could feel like this or be like this, and there was no drama. It was just people coming together creatively and making something and tackling each problem as a unit as it came across. So I think it's not the most impressive or like high stressed or biggest budget, but it was the first time that really unlocked for me. The sets don't have to be the way you've seen them before. You can create a calm environment. It can feel like a really good study group, or it doesn't need to have shouting, and it doesn't need to have yelling or anyone running around. There's a really zen way to operate, and it creates, in my experience, a better result. So that for me was the big unlock of how do I take this feeling and then implement it into all of the sets that I can play a part in, which is creating an environment where people feel safe, calm, reassured, and then hopefully inspired, or at the very least creative and joyful. And I just think that's rare to create those little spaces, and that's my greatest joy of what I get to do is like find the right players and build the band and then let them jam out. Like that's kind of sometimes the way I think of my job.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice way to think about it. Like, for people who aren't in filmmaking, like for me, it's sort of like the ultimate team sport. There's loads of different things. You're all pushing towards a goal that, people go, how do they make this movie that was so rubbish? And you go, well, no one went out to make a rubbish film. And actually, at the end of the day, you sort of go, like you said before, you can't control it, but you can control the way people feel on set, and actually was the journey of making it, a good experience. Did you ever witness where, did you ever work in an environment where you saw it being done badly or people not working in that way, and that made you sort of go, yeah, that's not how I want to operate?
Yeah, I think I definitely witnessed what you see is when people don't feel safe or people feel at such high stress that you just can't think properly, your communication's really bad, which is the classic trope of the film industry, like yelling, running, all of this, and honestly feeling in danger. Like I think the worst version of sets that you experience or see, you genuinely don't feel welcome or safe. And I think especially as women, that's like a very common trope of not necessarily feeling like you got the invite to the party. And so I think witnessing that and then thinking that was the only way, to be honest, of that's just how it is a shame. And I think a big unlock when I got to be in the driver's seat or be in a position to set the tone and realize there is a different way. And to make it sort of gendered, a female way of doing things can be just as effective, even if it doesn't look like a male version of leadership or the stereotypical director version. And so you can get more flies with honey than vinegar sometimes. And I think that that was a big unlock for me of finding creative power in my own style of doing things, that I didn't have to replicate the bad sets that I've seen. You're in charge now, go act like them. You're allowed to break that cycle. If you focus on the process of making whatever it is you want to make, a film, a script, a song, and making sure that process and the people that you work with is respectful, joyful, and more important than the end result, I promise you it will come back in spades and build you a community of collaborators for a lifetime, not just the project in front of you that you probably think is your most important work, and it will not be. It's all about the next film.
The one thing I learned, one guest, one story, one lesson every week. Kind of lesson that stays with you. Not advice, not noise, just something true. Something gathered on the way. Something worth passing on. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And at theonethingilearned.com. Produced by Amelia Clement. Music by Benjamin Hallway from Stamp Productions.